I call this meeting on April 4th, 2016 of the Board of Commissioners to order. To begin, we will have a prayer by Mr. Hudson and then the Pledge of Allegiance by our Deputy Manager, David Cotton. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. Please bow with me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, your word teaches us that you formed the institution of the family, the institution of the church, and Lord, you also formed the institution of government. We especially are thankful that here in this country we're able to come together in a democracy. And tonight we just ask your blessings upon this legislative body. Give them wisdom in all their deliberations. And more specifically, Lord, we ask your blessings upon Onslow County. We thank you for the change of the seasons and the beautiful weather. We ask your protection on our citizens, whether here or abroad. And in all these things, we will be careful to give you the praise, the honor, and the glory. For it is in Christ Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. David Cotton.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. It's great to have such a large audience out here. If you have not silenced your phone, please do so now. I welcome the sheriff. Always good to have a little extra law enforcement in the house. The board affords the public two opportunities to speak, called public comments. The rules of procedure are very specific about the participation in public comment. There's two segments. The first segment is a 3-minute time slot, and you have to speak on a topic that is on the agenda tonight. The second opportunity to speak is for 5 minutes towards the end of the meeting, and you can speak on any subject that the board has authority over. We ask that you sign up in the back of the room, and you will be called in the order that your name has been written on the sheet. If you've not looked over the rules of procedure, please do so. As you come forward, if there's an incorrection in your name or address, please correct it with the clerk at that time. We ask that you make your comments to the Board of Commissioners in their entirety. We appreciate there is no audience participation. People are free to speak their mind with no booing, gesturing, applauding, and they are to keep their comments civil and respectful, and no endorsement of a candidate or a business is permitted. At the end of the meeting, when it is commissioners' comments, they're free to respond to any comment that they heard at public comment if they should choose to do so. With that being said, we have a motion to adopt the agenda tonight.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move to amend the agenda by removing item 6A, resolution 16-16.004.
Mr. Wright, we just approved the agenda.
Sure did.
We just had a motion and a second and voted to approve the agenda.
Can we still amend it, or?
You have,
That's the law.
I think you'd have
That's
to
legal.
address the parliamentarian and ask the people that made the motion and seconded and voted for it. Mr. Manager, could you give us some
What shall she
guidance?
say?
Madam Chair, this is not a question we've had in a very long time. If I could consult with our attorney for a moment.
Okay.
What are you looking at? What are you looking at?
Whether or not. Mr. Manager, would it help if Commissioner Bright asked the person that made the motion and second if they would be interested in withdrawing their motion?
Madam Chair, the vote on that motion has ended since there's a vote of the full board.
Okay.
I believe that there would be, under Rule 15, a member may only make one motion at a time. Secondly, this would be, I believe, a second motion, so therefore a motion would be needed with a second, and then the full vote of the board would have to happen again, because you've already voted to adopt the agenda, and I believe also the powers of the chair are to rule motions in or out of order, including the right to rule out of order any motion patently offered for obstruction or dilatory purposes, number one. Two, to establish time restraints for discussion. Three, to determine whether a speaker has gone beyond reasonable standards, et cetera. And to entertain or refer to the county attorney questions of parliamentary law or procedure.
Okay. The chair rules that the motion has been made and passed. It's time to move on. I'm sorry, Mr. Bright. The second item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda as posted?
Motion to adopt the consent agenda as posted.
I would like to amend the consent agenda if possible. The consent agenda only takes one dissenting vote. I would like to pull A2 off of the consent agenda, which is a request for additional funds for legal. I would like, since our regular attorney is not here, I'd like to have that moved to item 8 on the items pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion. At this time, if there's no one else that has anything they'd like to pull off the consent agenda, I again ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda at this time. Do I have a motion to adopt the remaining consent agenda?
Motion to adopt the remaining consent agenda.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Please note, Mr. Manager, item 2A has been moved to item 8. For Commissioner's clarity, I believe the description of that item is on page 3 in your packet. Mr. Manager, at this time, we have public comment, the first 3-minute public comment. Are you prepared to move forward?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, call your first speaker.
Item 3, public comment. This is the first public comment period. During this first public comment period, there's a 3-minute time limit. In accordance with the board's rules of procedure, commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner comment period at the end of the agenda. All comments must be directly issue-oriented with the agenda items on for this meeting during this first public comment session. The first individual to sign up to speak is Mr. Mark Price of 231 Zahner Drive, Jacksonville. Mr. Price, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
I'd like to speak in reference to the item 6A about increasing the number of commissioners. This originated in the Tar Landing and Crossroads Precinct, of which I'm the chairman of the Tar Landing Precinct, and so I wanted to speak about that because that's where we started talking about this, and we drew it up a year ago. And the design of this was to allow the people to have a voice, to listen to what the people wanted. You know, we had discussed it there in the precinct, and there was some some discussion about that people were interested in increasing the boards from 5 to 7. And so we agreed in drawing up the resolution that this should be submitted to the board to then call upon the state legislature to allow a referendum. And that was the design. And we voted on this a year ago at the GOP convention. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember anyone from the board speaking out in favor of that at that time. There were 2 or 3 people that spoke in favor of it. It didn't pass at that time, but it did pass this year. Under the resolved as presented by the GOP resolution, Was it resolved that the Onslow County Republican Party requests that our Onslow County Board of Commissioners draft a resolution to increase the size of the Board of Commissioners from 5 to 7 at-large seats so a referendum may be placed on the ballot for consideration of the voters in the earliest election possible. What I read in the resolution that the board has drawn up, or the board has had drawn up, I don't know who actually wrote it, but be it resolved here that effective December 5, 2016, that the Onslow County Board of Commissioners shall be comprised of 7 members, who shall be those 7 candidates that received the highest number of votes cast during the November 2016 general election, as selected from the 7 candidates who received the highest number of votes during the March 2016 Republican primary, and those 2 Democrat candidates who advanced past the March 2016 primary election. And what this looks like to the people, their perception that I've heard from a lot of folks, is that it's an end run around the will of the people of Onslow County, and that's not what we want to see. We want to hear the people's voice to be heard. That was the design of the resolution. That's the way it should be. I see no reason why the resolution as presented by the GOP cannot be implemented. If there is some reason, maybe perhaps you can explain it. And I would think it would be just as easy to place additional names on the ballot as it would be to place a referendum. If I'm mistaken, I would hope you would correct me on that, but I would support the resolution as presented by the GOP, and I hope you would as well. Thank you.
The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Kevin Buffell of 1003 Clyde Drive, Jacksonville. Mr. Buffell, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm just here to, like Mark Price said, the GOP resolution was designed to go to referendum. We do not agree with the current resolution that the board has presented. The voters of Onslow feel that they have spoken by unseating 3 incumbents. The board should not be changing the rules because they're unhappy about how the voters voted. The voice of the voters should not be silenced by using or manipulating the system through a resolution that benefits 2 of the incumbents that lost in the primary. If you want to win, you need to do it at the ballot. If the resolution is voted on tonight, I respectfully request that the 2 commissioners that directly benefit from this resolution recuse themselves from this vote. Voting on items that have personal gain should never be done, despite what legal counsel may say. Thank you.
The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Bob Williams of 929 Commons Drive, Jacksonville. Mr. Williams, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Good evening. It's a little odd to be on this side of the microphone. I'm going to speak on item 6A, the board resolution, if I may, for a couple of minutes here. I'm going to speak in opposition to the way it is currently written. Number one, I'm going to echo the sentiments of the 2 previous speakers. The resolution as written does not consider what the Onslow GOP intended to do, intended to go to a referendum and let the people have their voice in the matter as well. We're all elected, rather, you're all elected, I'm elected too, to a different board. We all went through the same process, basically. We can't subvert that process at the 10th hour, or at the 11th hour, or even at the 12th hour. We need to let the people speak. Once the people have spoken, we need to respect what they've said. This disregards what the primary voters, or the voters in the primary, intended it to do. Number one, the candidates ran for 4-year terms. What you're trying to do is subvert that process by running it in the general election and turn it out that some of those candidates that successfully competed and won in the primary are now going to be faced with a 2-year term versus a 4-year term based on the outcome of the election. It gives the Republicans, at least 2 of them, a second bite of the apple. It's disadvantage to the Democrats, the 2 of them, that were on the primary ballot but didn't have 5 that they had to run a primary. Now you're going through a process that's just not going to be fair to anyone. 4 of the 5 of you actually need to recuse yourself. Now, I heard in the or read in the paper today that you have consulted legal counsel. Legal counsel says it's okay to go forward because it's going to go to the legislature anyway, and it doesn't matter. All you're doing is passing this. But I would contend that 4 of you have a beneficial interest in this resolution passing. There's only 1 of you on the board right now of incumbents that would not be included in that process if it goes to a general election under the current format. I've got an amended situation if you want to listen to it. Basically, what I would suggest is that you get this rewritten, you amend it, or you rescind it tonight. Send it up for the legislature to act on. Do it in the general election in 2016, a clean resolution. 2018, elect 2 people for 4-year terms. And in 2020, elect 5 people and make it 4 people for a 4-year term and 1 for a 2-year term to coincide with the process that you've got. At that point, by 2022, you will be in full operation with that, and I think it'd be in accordance with what the people were looking for. Thank you.
The next individual to sign up to speak is Ms. Candy Brown Thompson. Ms. Thompson, if you would, once you reach the podium, please give your address for the record. And you will have the podium for a period of 3 minutes that begins after your address is given.
My address is 104 Marion Place, Jacksonville, North Carolina, 28546. I didn't write anything to come and speak to you. I'm just I guess I'm speaking from my heart, watching how everything has gone down. Actually, you could probably say for the last 6 months of the whole election, from the comments made on air, the comments made in the newspapers, and I hate to say it, but it's almost an embarrassment to Onslow County for what we're having to go through right now. I know a lot of people are, from outside of the county that are seeing things that are on social media, and I'm getting comments like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, I don't know. I can't even begin to explain it. But I know as we, the people, voted, and it's like, why are we changing laws now? Is it because that the 3 amigos did not get put back in? The 3 incumbents did not get voted back in? All 3? And it just seems like it's, I have people sending me messages going, it's the sore losers. And I don't want to say sore, I guess I do want to say it's sore losers. It's just an embarrassment, and I'm getting emotional, and I'm sorry. I want to be proud to live in Onslow County, just as much as everybody sitting out here wants to be proud to live in Onslow County. For us to have to sit here and have this, to discuss this resolution now, after an election, to redo an election, I think it's crazy, it's silly, and it's a waste of time. It's a waste of taxpayers' money. Thank you.
The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Mike Plinus. Mr. Plinus, if you would, please supply your address for the clerk, and then following you're supplying the address, we'll begin your 3 minutes at the podium. Thank you.
Mike Plinus, 109 Melody Lane, Jacksonville, 28540. Okay, I want to start off with a quote from Daniel Webster, who said, "I am committed against any attempt to rule the free people of this country by the power and patronage of the government itself." And if this was a football game, I'd have to throw the yellow flag on you guys, because as a board, the proposal that's on this pager is out of bounds. It's clearly out of bounds. The people of Onslow County went through their primary process. The candidates all went through the primary process. Some of you were matter of fact, all of you were all involved in the primary process. And the people, the registered voters that participated in this election have spoken. Now, the Republican Party, and here again, I'm one of the co-conspirators to this original resolution with Tar Landing, so down at the crossroads. But the intent here was to help us improve the representation for Onslow County. And we know we've talked to a lot of you guys, but a lot of people about all these, the workload and the commitments that you guys have to go through to entertain these jobs. And with our population growing and things of that nature, we know it's a daunting task. But the people have spoken. And we went through, we have our 5 successful candidates. And now we got to go through the general election, which includes a total of 7 with the 2 Democrats. Now, if you really wanted to do something, include them. But the fact of the matter is, we can't just arbitrarily just say, okay, we're going to have 9, but we're going to include 2 of the people that didn't make it. We're going to give them a do-over. No, that's out of bounds. That's deserving of a yellow flag, because that, if it's not, it ought to be against the rules. And I guess that I'm going to close with a quote by Thomas Jefferson that says, "We in America do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate." And I'm sorry, you know, I'm with Bob Williams on that one, because 4 of you all stand to be affected by the passage of this resolution. Therefore, you ought to recuse yourselves, and that only leaves 1 to participate, and that doesn't represent a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. The next individual to sign up to speak is Ms. Dee Dee Dobby of 109 Melody Lane. You have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
My address is wrong. It's 580 Old 30 Road.
580 Old 30 Road. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, now your 3 minutes will begin whenever you begin.
Okay, thank you. I'm about 48 hours a widow now, and here I am again in a place I don't want to be, doing something I don't want to do, because we have elected officials who have decided that we don't know what's best for us, and that they do, and have assumed, again, the role of ruling over us rather than representing us. Everybody who spoke before me spoke on the referendum and how it is not what the GOP wanted, and it does not represent the will of the people. The will of the people was loud and clear in the primaries, and some of you up there, you lost. You lost. And one of you actually told one of my friends, a very good friend of mine, that you were distraught over the kind of people elected to represent Onslow County making comments about tattoos and the inability of these people to represent Onslow County with dignity and respect. May I remind you that we are a military town, and more than half, probably closer to 75 or 80% of every man and woman that wears that uniform or has worn that uniform bears a or many tattoos, and they are every bit as respectable and as dignified, and more so, than the person who made that comment. As a matter of fact, this ploy that you have tried to perpetrate on Onslow County is one of the most undignified acts I have ever seen in an attempt to hold your seat and hold on to what you consider to be power. You made a comment that maybe it was God's will that you didn't win, and maybe it was right. Maybe you should listen to him, and you should be at the side of your loved one who isn't doing well, as I was. I resent, completely and totally resent you implying that anybody with a tattoo or who doesn't look like you do or talk like you do or sound like you do. No, I won't stop. Can I remind you, I did. I am. You work for me. I don't work for you. I will speak my mind, and you won't stop me. I'm not disrupting anybody. I'm not breaking any laws or any rules. Thank you very much for your time.
Ladies and gentlemen, just let me reiterate. The 3-minute time period is for agenda items. Any other topic that you would like to speak on, please sign up at the 5-minute. There's much more flexibility, but in the 3-minute time zone, please stick to the rules of procedure, which say it has to be an agenda item. Thank you. Mr. Manager?
The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Joe McLaughlin of 201 Hampshire Place, Jacksonville. Mr. McLaughlin, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Joel McLaughlin, 201 Hampshire Place, Jacksonville, North Carolina. Mr. Manager, there hasn't been such a collection of past, current, or future commissioners, I think, in recent memory, so maybe at the end we can get together for a group photo. Fellow commissioners, and there's a message in there. How many prior commissioners are here? Ernie Wright, and I see Tony Paget out there somewhere, myself, future commissioners. We are all here, as well as a room full of people, because this appears to the people a terrible idea. And I know as well as you do the sting of electoral rejection. I know how sometimes you can make a case in your mind for what appears to a lot of other people a very bad idea. I just ask you to look deep within your heart, contemplate the action that you're about to take in opposition to the overwhelming voice of the people. And I just ask you, I beg you, don't do this. Don't do it. Thank you.
The next individual that's signed up to speak is Mr. Royce Bennett. Mr. Bennett, once you reach the podium, please give your address for the record.
Royce Bennett, 2475 Northwoods Drive, Jacksonville.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I'd like to speak in regards to item 6A, Resolution 16004. I'm a supporter of a 7-member board, yet I'm adamantly opposed to the resolution that you have presented today. Your resolution would circumvent the will of the people and change the rules of the election in mid-cycle. I believe that it displays a blatant disregard for the electorate of Onslow County. And this type of authoritarian governance is precisely why 9 challengers chose to compete for the seats that you now hold. On March the 15th, the people of Onslow County voted for change. A vote in favor of this resolution is a vote to ignore the will of the people. I ask you to amend your resolution and to reflect the intent of the Republican Party and allow the people of Onslow County, if they want, to increase the board in an election in November. Thank you.
Thank you. The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Ernie Wright of 2 West Bayshore Boulevard, Jacksonville. Mr. Wright, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Thank you. Greetings, Board of Commissioners, County Manager and staff. I rise in opposition to item 6 on the resolution. While I'll support the increased 5 to 7, I really think we're moving too fast. I think the public has to have input. I think we need to educate the public through workshops. We also need to be transparent in our actions. In other words, no backdoor deals, no backroom agreements made, no nothing. Let's go around to our public and let's educate them, not only about increasing it to 7 at large, what about districts? I'm going to throw a little Democratic flavor here and ask you to consider districts. There's not one representative from Jacksonville on the Board of Commissioners. If we have districts, each part of the county can be represented. You can reach out and touch your representative. You can also have a combination of at-large and districts. So the main thing is allow the 5 newly elected commissioners that will occur in November to decide the issue of size, of districts, of staggered terms. And it's only after our citizens have the final say. I would submit, I agree with former Commissioner McLaughlin, elections are to move forward. We don't move backwards. We're in a democracy. The voters have spoken. I, too, have been on the short end of an election. I had to pull up my big boy pants, and I had to take my whooping like a man. And I moved on, period. And that's what each one of you who lost needs to do. Come back another day. I would submit to you, in closing, that this is a bad resolution, in my opinion, it needs more study. I really feel that the public is entitled to transparency, and they need more time to be educated about the effects of increasing this board. I will leave you with this. New Hanover County has 216,000 people, but yet they have 5 commissioners. Sampson has 64,000. They have 5 commissioners. Duplin has 60,000. They have 5 commissioners. They seem to be doing all right with 5 commissioners. I realize we're growing, but we don't need to rush things. Let's include the public in our actions, because remember, as was said earlier, you serve the public doesn't serve you. Thank you.
The next individual to speak is Mr. Gene Innett. Mr. Innett, once you approach the podium, if you would, please give your address for the record. After you give your address, your 3 minutes will begin.
My address is P.O. Box 532, Sneeds Ferry, and I'm here to talk about item number 6. I'd like to start out by saying that I am for a 7-member board, so I don't have a problem with that. But the only way to describe the resolution scheduled for tonight is a pathetic attempt by this board to circumvent the long-standing democratic process of voting by allowing 2 unnamed individuals to seek re-election in the same election year after being defeated by a majority of the voters. I seriously doubt that any other of the candidates defeating in the Republican primary would have been afforded the same opportunity that 2 unnamed may be appointed if this is passed. And on a lighter note, just a second thought, why don't we amend the resolution and have a 13-member board, and all the candidates that ran will then be county commissioners? You know, just a thought. But seriously, I can truthfully say, through personal knowledge, that myself and another candidate in this room would refuse any such resolution like this on our behalf. But commissioners, if each one of you want to be known as the most corrupt board in the history of Onslow County, then I encourage each one of you to vote yes to this resolution tonight. On the other hand, if you have any conscience, if you have any heartfelt desire to perhaps do the right thing, then I pray that you vote no to this resolution. And in conclusion, I have spoken my piece, and I have a clear conscience. I now leave this resolution in the hands of the Almighty God to instill knowledge and wisdom and godly values to those that are voting on this resolution tonight. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. Amen.
The next person that signed up to speak is Ms. Marsha Wright of 2 West Bayshore Boulevard. Ms. Wright, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Good evening. I just have a few comments. The discussion about the need to increase the number of seats on the Board of Commissioners has been going on for a long time. I think there is significant agreement on that one basic issue. Now, I have firsthand knowledge of the demands that are placed on someone who serves on this board. It is not just about one meeting, but requires committee meetings, budget hearings, travel, training, service on citizen advisory committees and other boards required by state statute, special events, all kinds of things. And that is a huge amount of work for 5 people to have to do. However, this proposal just goes too far. We are in the middle of a regular election cycle. We have finished phase 1 that occurred last month. 2 Democratic candidates were certified for November, and 5 Republican candidates were successful in making it onto the November ballot in making 7 candidates who are the only ones who should be considered for the currently available 5 seats. After November, the newly elected Board of Commissioners should take up the issue of expansion. This meeting is being televised and rebroadcast so that citizens have the opportunity to hear and see what's taking place and become engaged in the process of governance. Any changes in the number of seats and how they are chosen should only come up after careful consideration and input from the county citizens. Could be possible that more seats might be added. We may develop districts. They might be all at large or a hybrid system, and terms may be staggered. Public trust in government and elected officials is at an all-time low. This proposal is ill-timed and inappropriate at best and should be taken off the table until the current election cycle is completed. Thank you.
The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Philip Morton. Mr. Morton, when you approach the podium, if you would please give your address for the record. After that, your 3 minutes would begin.
My address is 140 Willie Kellum Road, Jacksonville, North Carolina, 28546. Good afternoon, good evening, Commissioners. Each of you are active in your churches, so I would certainly like to start out with 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, 3 very powerful words. It says, pray without ceasing. We should do that a lot before we move forward here. To do what the resolution here, I want to speak on 6A. It's a slap in the face to the voters for the resolution that you've laid out. In this very room, just months ago, in your resolution I read Friday, the reasons that we need to move forward in your wording is that we have 195,000 plus citizens. Our sheriff stood right here and asked for more deputies. You gave him one more person based on those same numbers that you're currently giving to move forward. Onslow County is a very big county, but it's a real small county. One of you mentioned something to a personal friend of mine about this tattoo situation and how the people that was elected, I just want to let you know I have tattoos. I might get one on the way home tonight. I don't think much of that at all. It's a disgrace to our citizens. It's a disgrace to our county for what's being said there. I'm ashamed of you for saying that. I truly am. By no way should 2 people be added on to this like you're thinking. There was 9 of us that lost. So let's put all 9 of us on there. How do you figure it should be 2? That's not the way it's done. The citizens of Onslow County spoke, and Mr. Ernie Wright said it best. Pull up your pants, get prepared. You didn't win. Move on with life. That's all I got to say.
The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Robin Knapp of 303 Alta Vista Loop, Jacksonville, North Carolina. Mr. Knapp, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Hope you all can see me. I appreciate the time to speak with you. Just a couple of points. A lot of people have made some points already, but I think we're missing the point on one big issue. Okay, this involves citizens. And I want to go back to this resolution. It's item 6. It says, the Onslow County Republican Party, meeting in convention in March 2016, overwhelmingly passed a resolution seeking to increase the size of the Onslow County Board of Commissioners from 5 to 7 at-large seats with staggered terms. That is absolutely correct, but it's absolutely incorrect as well, because it's being misrepresented. I was at that convention. The original proposal by our Republican Party put this item in the hands of the voters. We suggested, or we recommended, a referendum, okay? Because why are we going to decide on something like this that impacts all of our citizens, not individuals, okay? Citizens have talked about this. Whether you agree with the 7-member board, whether you agree with the 5-member board, that doesn't matter, okay? That can be discussed and that can be voted upon by the citizens. The Republican Party, Kevin Buffell in his proposal, was very clear that we wanted to push this up to Raleigh as a referendum.
And let me repeat that. I'm going to keep repeating that. Referendum. And everybody out here should know that. A referendum to the citizens, not to the board. Now, I'm one of these individuals that ran in the primary, and I was very fortunate, God willing, that I made it. I finished third. There are a lot of people here who didn't make it that are absolutely wonderful people. And we all share the same passion in regards to this, okay? When you say something about overwhelmingly pass, let's be very specific. No, it did not overwhelmingly pass, not in the context that it is written today. And if this were to go through, I understand what the lawyer said, but I think the lawyer's wrong. If you were to vote on this, which directly impacts two of you that are sitting on the commission now, that's a conflict of interest, okay? You need to recuse yourself from any type of voting because it directly affects you. Whether you pass it and you're just passing it along, I really don't like that verbiage. You know, as a former law enforcement official, I would look at that and say that is a conflict of interest and there's some shady stuff going on with this, okay? Plain and simple. On March 15th, the voters spoke. 5 of us made it. And when I started to run this election or run for this particular position, I was under the understanding that I would be competing for the top 5 slots, not 7. And I will say it is unfair to the Democratic Party as well, because this is not what they got into. This should go before the citizens. The citizens need to vote on this. The citizens need to have a say. And if they say yay, then we continue forward. But if the citizens say no, that's the end of it, because we're here to serve the citizens. Thank you.
The next individual to speak is Mr. Al Burgess, P.O. Box 615, Jacksonville. Mr. Burgess, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Chief, greetings, Madam Chair and Commissioners of the Board. I stand before you today because I'm greatly disappointed by some of the accusatory and inaccurate remarks regarding agenda item 6A that I have heard over the radio and have read on the social media. First and foremost, this is not the first time that the board has attempted to expand the board by 2 members. Within 2 months after the 2008 elections, in response to the county growth and citizen concerns, the Board of Commissioners adopted a resolution on February 16, 2009, expressing the board's intention to hold a public hearing at its regular March 16, 2009 meeting regarding the board's proposal to increase the size of the board from 5 to 7 at-large members and to hold primary and general elections for the 2 at-large seats in 2010. In response to the announcement, the Onslow County branch of the NAACP, and I was the president at that time, presented their adopted resolution opposing expansion because although they were in favor of a 7-member board, they believed that expanding the board and implementing a district voting system would be the fairest system for all areas of Onslow County. The commissioners gave responses, and in particular, the vice chair at the time, which I consider a campaign, a political commitment, Commissioner Eichner stated that after the 2010 census is completed, they would have better numbers, and at that time, the county could have a combination of district and at-large. I attended the county commissioner meeting on October 19, 2015, and I asked the board to revisit our county's voting system issue. A little more than 5 months later, it brings me great pleasure to see that the board had adopted a resolution that specifically states the intent to establish districts, which will result in a board that will be more representative of our very diversified county. Districting our county will allow our county to have a board that is more representative of the needs and the interests of the cities, townships, and communities that make up Onslow County. And staggered terms will give us the assurance that there will be no disruption in planning, coordinating, or implementing any county policy. And in doing it, we will always have a guarantee that our county will have a proper turnover and a succession plan regardless of who is elected, which are representational safeguards that our current at-large voting scheme does not offer. Madam Chair and board members, I humbly ask you to stay the course because I believe the proposed resolution will eliminate many of the issues that many citizens have with our current at-large voting system. Thank you.
The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Pat Walker of 140 Denise Drive, Jacksonville, North Carolina. Miss Pat Walker, I'm sorry, Miss Walker. I knew that. You have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My situation at this point, I've listened to everybody. I understand that this resolution is not favorable to everybody. But I'd like to point out that what has happened because of this resolution is the fact that Onslow County is getting a very bad reputation. The name-calling, the lies, all that's going on hurts no one but the citizens and Onslow County as a whole. I've listened to the radio shows. It's horrible. It's horrible what's going on. Onslow County is my county, and I've done a lot of work here over the past 15 to 20 years. I'd like it to stay one of the better counties in the state of North Carolina. I've watched how the county commissioner election went, and I'm sorry to say, but we have a great county commissioners coming in that are going to back the law enforcement in this town 100%. I really think if you're going to pass a resolution, get it started, work out the kinks, and let the public have their say, but keep it moving. You got a long list of old business that's never been completed. Thank you.
The next individual that signed up to speak is William Abril of 299 Ramsey Road. Mr. Abril, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Commissioners, good evening. My name is Willie Abril from 299 Ramsey Road. I come today about item 6, and it seems there's a loud voice behind me. The one thing that is being said but has not been defined is it may be legal, but is it ethical? After your time, you guys got to come and serve the community, be part of the community. I don't think not a single one of you is a bad person. Your decisions tonight will have a big part. Ethics is a gray area. Legality is clear. We got lawyers, we got judges. But ethics is that gray area. I think the people behind so far have spoken very loud, and the ethics is pretty clear. Thank you very much.
The next person to sign up to speak is Mr. Junior Freeman of 220 Harbor View Court, Swansboro. Mr. Freeman, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Yes, Junior Freeman, 220 Harbor View Drive, Swansboro, North Carolina. Commissioners and Chairman, Madam Chairman, I come before you tonight to speak on the resolution for item 6A. And I too support the others who have spoke about the change of the resolution to actually have this as a resolution to bring a referendum on November the 7th before the voters of the county to have their say as to whether they want to have 7 commissioners seated here and representing them or not. If the voters on March the 15th had had 7 choices to go with, then I feel that the results may have been different. We will never know. We can't go back and redo that. But the numbers may have been different. The results may have been different. Each of you are registered Republicans. We were talking about a GOP resolution that was done by the GOP party. And last year, the resolution came up and it failed. And I believe, Madam Chairman, you spoke against it, if I remember correctly, and as well as Representative Cleveland spoke against it, and it failed overwhelmingly at that convention. This year's convention, it came up and it passed overwhelmingly. I've been talking about 7 commissioners being on this board for a number of years, and that was my platform as running for one of the seats on the commission for one of the 5 seats. As you look back at what has happened with that, then the people have asked to speak that the registered Republicans and independents who chose to vote in the Republican primary made their decision. And with that, they deserve to let the vote stand as it is. In 2012, 2018, add 2 commissioners with a 4-year term. 2020, add 4 at that time, with 1 being a 2-year term. And then 2022, we'll get on track for staggered terms. And that will move forward, which I feel would be better representation, where it would create continuity on the board during election years, because during election years, employees are really at odds. As far as not at odds, there is confusion, and they don't know who the boss is going to be. However, that the districting is something that certainly needs to be talked about. It needs to be discussed, and I don't know how dividing up Onslow County could be done to where it could be equal and fair to all. I think with 7 commissioners, we'll have a good opportunity, 7 seats, to be able to represent the entire county. Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes the number of people that have signed up for the first public comment period.
Thank you. Just a note, if anyone feels like they didn't have plenty of time to say what they'd like, please sign up for the 5-minute and you can address the board again. At this time, let's move ahead with item 4, 5, 6, 7 with the regular meeting.
Item 4, presentations. 2 proclamations have been prepared for presentation this evening. At this time, I'll read the first proclamation, National Telecommunicators Week. State of North Carolina, County of Onslow, proclamation, National Telecommunicators Week 2016. Whereas, when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of law enforcement officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our first responders is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Onslow County Communications Center. And whereas the skilled public safety telecommunicator is the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services and are the single vital link for our first responders by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas telecommunicators of the Onslow County Emergency Services Department have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas emergencies can strike at any time, and we rely on the vigilance and preparedness of these individuals 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Onslow County Board of Commissioners declares the week of April 10th, 2016 through April 16, 2016, Telecommunicators Week in Onslow County in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our community and citizens safe. Presented this the 4th day of April, 2016. This evening, during this presentation, we will have 2 parts. First of all, the chairman has asked that Vice Chairman Paul Buchanan present the proclamation. Receiving the proclamation will be Director of Emergency Services, Mr. Norman Bryson, and E911 Division Chief, Mr. Ray Silence. I would ask both of those employees to join the Vice Chairman at the microphone. Following the presentation of the proclamation, Mr. Silence will come to the podium, and there will be a pinning ceremony whereby we will be recognizing special telecommunicators. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you. On behalf of all of our telecommunicators, and there's a lot of law enforcement officers in this room right now, the sheriff's here, and I think that Gene Ennett went outside a while ago, but Gene's a former trooper. There's a lot of deputies in the audience. Jack and I are former officers. WC's a former officer. The telecommunicators are a lifeline to our citizens. They're also a lifeline to us, the law enforcement officers that are on the street and the public safety officers that are out there. Fire, EMS, all of these people. They look out for our citizens. They look out for all of our officers that are on the street. And it's great pride for me tonight to honor them. And we're going to honor several of them with a lot of awards. So on behalf of the county commissioners, I want to thank all of you for what you do.
Thanks, sir.
I would like to thank our Board of Commissioners for recognizing our telecommunicators. We have about 15 of them with us this evening that will be recognizing for saving lives in childbirth. In 2015, we received 185,000 phone calls into our 911 center. And these men and women that are here tonight and those that are back at the office this evening that are answering those calls are more than just individuals that answer a phone call and say, yes, there's an ambulance on the way. They talk with the patients, they provide comfort to those patients, and they provide help to them. They provide information back to our police, fire, law enforcement, and rescue services so that we can provide adequate service back to the citizens. Again, I would like to thank commissioners for providing this and recognizing our telecommunicators.
These childbirths and saves were pulled from a time frame 1 year beginning April 1st, 2015 through March 31st, 2016. The first one, Thomas Bourget, has 3 cardiac saves. Brian Cole, 1 cardiac save. Janet Freshire, 3 cardiac saves. Candace Jarman, 1 cardiac save. Megan Johnson, 1 cardiac save. Amber Jones, 1 cardiac save and 1 childbirth of a baby boy. Marsha Mason, 1 cardiac save and 1 childbirth of a baby boy. Kelly Milam, 1 cardiac save. Shane Penland, 2 cardiac saves and a childbirth of a baby boy. Darlene Sanderson, 1 cardiac save. Michelle Simpson, 2 cardiac saves. Tina Simpson, 2 cardiac saves and a childbirth of a baby girl. Christine Whaley, 2 cardiac saves and a childbirth of a baby boy. And Aaron Wiseman, 2 cardiac saves.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we please give these fine employees another round of applause? As they're taking their seats, I would like to say again one of the lines that I used in the State of the Community address. When a person calls 911, the telecommunicator on the other end of that line is the single most important government official in the entire world to that caller. So we do thank you very much for all of your service. They're the voice on the phone, but they're often not seen. And so tonight's very important. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. The next presentation is Child Abuse Prevention Month. At this time, I'll read the resolution into the record, the proclamation, rather. State of North Carolina, County of Onslow, proclamation, Child Abuse Prevention Month 2016. Whereas America is a country where all of us should be able to pursue our own measure of happiness and live free from fear, but for the millions of children who have experienced abuse or neglect, it is a promise that goes tragically unfulfilled. And whereas no matter the challenges we face, caring for our children must always be our first task. And whereas it is important for all people to recognize the signs of child neglect and physical and emotional abuse, including sudden changes in behavior or school performance and untreated physical or medical issues. And whereas all citizens should support families so that they may provide safe, nurturing environments for their children, giving them the opportunity to grow up to be caring, contributing members of the community. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs are successful due to the partnerships created among social service agencies, schools, faith communities, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the Onslow County Board of Commissioners declares April 2016 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and calls upon all citizens to recognize the courage it takes to raise a child and reaffirm the fundamental human rights of all children to live free from violence and abuse. Present this 4th day of April 2016. Representatives of the Onslow County Consolidated Human Services and Peers Family Development will accept the proclamation. Chairman Eichner will present the proclamation. Chairman Eichner.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much. April is a month that I hope everyone will keep close to their heart and recognize that when they see something, to say something. It is so important, whether you're in a grocery store or in a mall and you see a child being abused or mistreated, please say something. That's probably not the first occasion that that has happened. And it is the hardest of jobs for our social workers to be involved in child abuse cases. There's hardly a day, a week, that you can't pick up a newspaper and see a headline of a mother, a boyfriend, or whoever that has beat to death a child. And sometimes I wonder, have we become so insensitive to it? We read the article and we put it down. It's gotten to the place it doesn't disgust us the way it used to. This is horrific. These are precious little lives. And the people that stand behind me that work these cases every day have a heart and a mentality that I can only imagine, to go into these homes and see these situations and still be sane to do a job. So thank you, Heidi. I know this is our Director of Social Services, and this lady is a wonder. Thank you, I appreciate it.
I just want to say a couple of things real quick. One, I want to throw out a statistic for you. 300 out of every 1,000 children in Onslow County last year were reported for child maltreatment. 69 out of every 1,000 children in Onslow County were found to have maltreatment in their home. Those are really big numbers. And we know that we have unreported cases out there. I would like to remind you all also that in North Carolina, the way the law reads, every citizen is a mandated reporter. And by mandated reporter, it means if you suspect child maltreatment is occurring in a home, you don't have to have proof, you don't have to have firsthand knowledge, you just have to suspect that that may be happening. Please report those cases to the department. It's very important for me also to say that we are not a punitive department. What we are looking for is how we can help a family, how we can help a child. A lot of times what people see as child maltreatment is poverty. We want to see if we can help that family have what they need to raise that child and take care of them inside their home. So please make those reports if you have any concerns. We will respond and always respond with the family's best interest at heart. Thank you.
Let's give them a big hand.
Good evening. I just wanted to take this opportunity to invite everyone tomorrow to Peers Family Development Center, which is at 151 Cheney Avenue at 10 a.m. We're going to do pinwheels. We're going to plant pinwheels in for the prevention of child abuse as April as the prevention month. So we encourage everyone to come out on behalf of Peers and the Child Advocacy Center. Thank you.
At this time, under item B, under presentations, we will consider the Onslow County Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Mr. Patrick Flanagan, Planning Director of the Eastern Carolina Council, will provide the Onslow County Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Mr. Flanagan.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
That was my fault. I want to talk to you guys about the Onslow County Comprehensive Transportation Plan that has been begun in conjunction with NCDOT. The main reason for the timing of this is the Jacksonville Metropolitan Organization has just completed their long-range transportation plan. This is a multimodal plan that looks at what transportation needs will be from now until 2040. So these are long-range transportation plans. The Jacksonville MPO plan is a fiscally constrained plan, so they have to only submit projects that they have the money or anticipate having the money to build within that time frame. So this is important when we start talking about a comprehensive transportation plan, which is a little different than what the MPO does, but it takes the whole county into consideration as opposed to just that metropolitan planning area. But again, it is a long-range plan. This is a 30-year vision for transportation within the county. It is multimodal, so it is all modes of transportation, whether it be rail or bikes or sidewalks or highway. All modes of transportation are considered when we're looking at these plans. What we really try to do is identify what those local needs are going to be, not just right now, but in the future as areas grow. The CTP, however, is not fiscally constrained. So some of those bigger long-range projects that you didn't see make it into that Jacksonville MPO plan are some of the things that we're going to be adding into this comprehensive transportation plan, as well as those projects that we find outside of that MPO area that has already been studied. So why is CTP? To try to create that common long-range vision. Again, it's about what we think we're going to need down the road and being able to start planning for that now. Hopefully being able to guide land use decisions, future development, take into account what the natural impacts are to the environment as well as the human environment. All of these things get studied as we're working our way through this transportation plan, making sure that we're trying to get the foundation laid right now for useful and practical planning and transportation implementation in the future. Really trying to find out what those local priorities are through staff participation as well as public involvement for transportation needs in the county. And hopefully being able to, with this useful planning, trying to reduce the cost of some of these projects down the road when we can plan for them and reserve right-of-way and those kind of things when we're taking that long-range vision. If we can have a solid plan in our hands, know where we're going, we can reduce costs down the road by planning for these things very well right now. So there's really 6 big steps to this process, and I did mention some public participation. So there you see that conduct a needs assessment. Part of that is having a survey. So we're about to roll out a public survey that will be posted on not only the county website, but the municipalities within the county on their websites. We'll be making a big push to get participation from the public. We will have paper copies available as well as online for the folks who may not be as internet savvy. We really do want to try to get everybody's feedback right now and how they think the network functions as it exists today and what they think their future needs may be so that we can roll those into what the data that NCDOT is going to collect so we can get that public participation as we're trying to figure out what the needs are going to be. And then when we get to that analyze alternatives process and we have a good vision of what we think it's going to look like, we're then again going to go out to the public and have some public meetings throughout the county where folks can come and kind of look at what the results of the DOT study and their survey laid out and look at some of the projects that we would be putting into this plan and get their feedback on that and see if it makes sense to them and see if it's something they really think they're going to need or want going into the future. So we really do try to get that feedback from the public to make sure that this is an Onslow County plan as we're working through this process. But beyond that, we are also involving a lot of other, whether they be government or just interests within the county, the community college, the emergency services, transit agencies, parks and rec, all of these things either use or need that transportation network. So we want to get their feedback. The schools, the planning department, like I said, this is going to be comprehensive. So we want to get as much feedback as we can as we're moving through this process and make sure that everybody's needs are being met when we start thinking about what these potential projects need to be. So some of the factors we look at when we're doing this comprehensive transportation plan is paramount. What safety issues are there, and how can we address those safety issues? What kind of connectivity and mobility do we need to increase within the county, as well as the routes going outside of the county and some of the other major regional destinations that people may be trying to get to or from? And addressing the congestion issues within Onslow County through this long-range plan, as well as looking at some corridors that have been identified by the state of North Carolina as very important to the entire state, mainly US 17 and NC 24, those strategic transportation corridors that have been identified by the state, making sure we pay special attention to those so that the statewide vision can be realized through this Onslow County plan. And then some of the federally functionally classified roads, which are mainly your other NC routes, and make sure that they're getting the attention they need as we go through this process. So one of the major things that we have to consider when going through this plan is we're talking about growth over 30 years. So for the Jacksonville plan, they used a growth rate of 1.4% to project the population to determine how much need is going to be on the transportation need based on employment growth and population growth. So we were planning on using the same percentage rate for this plan because we really want it to tie in as much as possible to the work that the Jacksonville MPO has already done. So we just wanted to make sure that everybody within the county would be agreeable with that idea of making sure that we're trying to be as consistent as possible between the two documents and make them really hand in hand and work together as we plan for the transportation future of Onslow County. And that's all I have.
Thank you. We appreciate that presentation.
I'm sad to say I'm not the person to answer that question. Although they have been working diligently on it, they did hit some delays. So they're not quite on target, but they are working hard on it. I don't have a specific answer for you, though.
If you would mind, Commissioner Williams has a question, please.
Absolutely.
Good evening, Mr. Flanagan. Again, thank you for that presentation.
Sure.
The question that I have you worked on previous long-range plans such as this?
Yes, ma'am.
And what I'm wondering, how accurate the recommendations or assessments that have come forth out of the prior planning, because it's all these variables you're putting in this formula to see what the future may potentially look like. And what I'm just wondering, previous plans has been pretty accurate as to what the recommendations, what actually took place in those particular counties or areas of service that you've been involved in?
So there's kind of two answers to that question. It's very different in rural counties than it is for urban counties. But one thing that we saw in a lot of the plans we've done recently was the economic downturn and the housing crash really affected what we put into plans, because we were seeing a lot of growth over a lot of years and projected that growth to continue, and obviously it hasn't. So that affected a lot more of the rural communities that were kind of turning into those bedroom communities, your Jones counties, your Pamlico counties. We thought we were going to see this big housing boom, and we haven't seen it. So those plans are really going to need to go and be restudied. The more urban areas that have been seeing growth, we've seen pretty steady planning documents that have been able to predict that and put forward projects from those documents that are useful in helping that particular area grow. Does that answer your question?
That answers it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Is there anything further? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5 are public hearings. There are 3 public hearings scheduled during this meeting. The chairman has directed that I conduct the public hearings, and all 3 of the public hearings will follow the standard format. First of all, there will be a staff introduction. Planning and Development Director Ben Warren will give a brief introduction of each item. Following his brief introduction, Mr. Warren will sit down and I will open the public hearing. The first person that we would hear from is the applicant. The applicants are requested to provide a description of the project and any additional information to the board. After the applicant has spoken, we'll open it up to members of the public that have signed up for the public hearing. After those that have signed up have spoken, as this is a public hearing, I will call on any members of the audience that also have not had an opportunity to sign up but would like to speak regarding the topic. After everyone has had a chance to speak, I would close the public hearing, and then we would enter into commissioner discussion. I would like to make clear that during a public hearing, the public hearing is to hear comments from the public on the 3 rezoning issues before the board this evening. Any questions that the commissioners may have, the commissioners would reserve those for commissioner discussion. So I would ask that the applicant or the applicant's agent remain in the room following the public hearing and be available to answer any questions of the board so that the commissioners can make the best decision possible. The first item is rezoning case LCZ 2015-81. Mr. Warren, you're already at the podium. Would you please give a staff introduction of this case?
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Good evening, Madam Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. The first rezoning case that we have for your consideration this evening is to rezone property from R8M residential to RA conditional zoning. Just to provide a little background and overview of the rezoning request, the property owner is actually Mr. Carl Courtwright, and the petition is being submitted on his behalf by Mr. Timothy Carr. The parcel identification is 1302-13, which encompasses approximately 7.96 acres. As we look at the environmental impacts on the property, the floodplain areas encompass the eastern and southernmost sides of the property. Excuse me. And there's a likelihood of wetlands on the southernmost portion of the site as well. With utilities, Onwassa has a 4-inch and an 8-inch water line that run along NC Highway 72, adjacent to the property on the eastern side, or excuse me, the western side. Sewer is not currently available, and fire service is provided by Hubert Volunteer Fire Department with an ISO rating of 6. As we look at the traffic impacts, NC Highway 72 has an average annual daily traffic count of 6,800 vehicle trips per day, and Sand Ridge Road of 6,400 vehicle trips per day. The capacity of each of those streets is approximately 10,000 to 12,000 vehicle trips per day. Schools providing service to the property: Sand Ridge Elementary, which is currently under capacity, Swansboro Middle, which is currently under capacity, and Swansboro High School, which is currently under capacity. As we take a look at the property, you can see it's located south of the intersection of NC Highway 172 and NC 24, and the property does span between NC 172 and Sand Ridge Road with access on both of those roads. We look at the surrounding zoning. You can see to the property itself is currently zoned R8M. The areas in brown that we have are also R8M. The larger area in the green, or the yellow, is R30M. And then way up, it's hard to see, it really meshes together. We do have some existing RA within the vicinity as well. And the hashed area is the Flight Path Overlay District. We took a look at the aerial photo, just looking at a really zoomed out aerial. You can see there is some primarily vacant and residential properties in the vicinity of the rezoning site. As we get closer to NC Highway 24 and 172 intersection, we do have quite a bit of commercial in that vicinity. And as we zoom in a little bit closer, you can see we have the Blue Heron Manufactured Home Park. We have another manufactured home park to the north, and then surrounding single-family residential and vacant parcels. This is a view of the entrance of the property from Highway 172. And it primarily runs from this fence line, and it's hard to see, but there's a fence line over on the back side of these homes, and that is the stem that goes into the property. And this is a view of the property from Sand Ridge Road. Look at the district comparison. The existing R8M residential is primarily to stabilize established and planned single-family residential neighborhoods by providing a place for mobile home parks, mobile home subdivisions, and small multifamily developments with a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet and a maximum density of 5 dwelling units per acre. And the majority of the uses are dealing primarily with residential, public community centers, and supporting type uses. Now, this being a conditional zoning, quite different than a straight rezoning in that the applicant has submitted site-specific or rezoning-specific conditions to accompany the proposed rezoning. The minimum lot size would still remain intact, and that would be 20,000 square feet with no maximum density. But the permitted uses that have been submitted as part of the rezoning conditions include the following: daycare, dwellings, multifamily, duplex, multifamily townhouse, single-family manufactured home, single-family modular, single-family stick-built, office uses, and self-service storage, and will be limited to just those uses. Additional conditions that would accompany the rezoning, that any use other than a residential use shall require an opaque buffer be installed between that use and any adjoining residential properties. Any natural buffer area that is disturbed by development shall be in compliance with the Onslow County buffering requirements. The layout and arrangement of the building may be modified upon final engineered design. And as you'll see in a moment on the site plan, the reason for that condition is because of the potential environmental impacts on the site. Until an engineering study is done, it's really impossible for a developer to have an exact location of the building. All lighting on the site shall be internal and directed away from adjacent properties. Buffering shall be installed and maintained as included in the rezoning site plan. Access to the site should be in accordance with the rezoning site plan, and the property owner must secure an NCDOT driveway permit and all other applicable state permits prior to development. So let's take a look at the site plan. As you see, the access would be only from NC Highway 172. As you come into the site, there would be a 6-foot opaque fence that would be installed along both property lines coming into the property. And as is required by the county zoning ordinance, behind the opaque fence, there would also be evergreens that would be planted to further enhance the screening area. That would come entirely into the site, and once it comes into the site, it would connect with an existing 20-foot buffer that runs around the remaining perimeter of the site. So the existing tree line would remain in place. It's a little bit difficult to see, but as you look at the middle of the site, you can see that these lines basically represent the borders, the boundaries of the flood zone and the 404 wetlands area. So the site is really constricted as you get to the southern and the eastern portions, and that there would really be no access to Sand Ridge Road without significant environmental impacts, which would be cost prohibitive in a situation like this. So it would only be a single point of access, and development would really be contained to the middle of the site where the building is currently proposed. And this just another aerial just to kind of reinforce that. You can see it just in tree line right now would remain in place all the way up around the eastern side of the property, and also on this western property line, and then the throat area connecting to 172 would have the opaque fence and the evergreen buffer. And really this entire area that's wooded along the eastern and southernmost sides is the area that's contained within the floodplain and the wetland areas. As we look at the future land use recommendations, the parcel is really split down the middle, with the northernmost being the high-density residential recommendation and the green area being conservation. And how that relates to the proposed rezoning, being that this is a conditional rezoning, it's not something that will be contemplated by the land use plan because it is a special zoning district that's created on a case-by-case basis. However, the conditions that have been proposed as part of the rezoning and the overall intent of the rezoning is consistent with the guidelines that are recommended in the comprehensive plan. Additionally, the proposed rezoning would provide better access to services and existing future development in the surrounding area and will be considered reasonable in light of existing uses in the vicinity of the proposed rezoning site. And as we look at the recommendations, the planning department staff did recommend approval of the rezoning based upon its consistency with the recommendations in the comprehensive plan and also in light of the proposed conditions that accompany the rezoning. One of the reasons there is because of the types of uses that are proposed would be considered low impact type uses, and we felt like those would actually be even more so low impact than what's allowed within the existing zoning district. This did go before the planning board at their regular meeting, and the planning board actually voted 3-2 to recommend denial of the proposed rezoning due to some concerns they had with potential adverse effects on the surrounding neighborhood. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Hudson for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. At this time, I'll open the public hearing on rezoning case LCZ 2015-81. First, I'll ask for the applicant or the representative of the applicant to come forward if anyone is in the room. Please state your name and your relationship to the applicant once you reach the podium, and then give any description of the project and additional information the board may need.
My name is John Pierce, and I'm the owner's agent, representative. I feel like that we've made every attempt to make the property with a conditional use where it could be used and it wouldn't be adverse. I think that the use we proposed, we tried to cover all the conditions so it would be very low impact on the area. And I feel like it's in the best general public interest to rezone this property, and I would request that the commissioners would follow the recommendation of the planning staff. I think that it's appropriate and complementary to the area. I think it would enhance the area. I think it would be a positive, and it would definitely have a positive increase in the tax base. And like I say, we reviewed and we've tried to make sure that it's great and proper buffers. We've actually, I think, went above and beyond in some cases. And I certainly feel like that this rezoning would have less impact on the area than the current zone. It's such things that we could put in, such as a mobile home park. I think by far the security would be better. And as you know, I don't know if you're aware of the client, but most of the time he's been pretty heavy into the self-storage, office self-storage, and I would think that would be, I know that's not part of the rezoning, it's conditional use, but I'm sure that's what the intended use is. And I'll be here later on, and I've got the owner's son, or the developer's son here, and we'll be here later on after the public hearing to answer any questions the commissioners may have. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
At this time, we'll call upon members of the public that may wish to speak regarding this matter. The first individual that signed up to speak is Matthew Wilhelm of 179 Highway 172, Hubert. Mr. Wilhelm, you have the podium.
Could I get some assistance in going back to the site plan map on the screen? Mr. Warren.
Mr. Warren?
While he's doing that, I'll go ahead and start. First of all, thank you for hearing our concerns. And I say our concerns because I am here representing the neighborhood that surrounds the parcel of 193 Highway 172. My comments, for the most part, are addressed from the planning board's staff notes. I don't know if you all had a chance to see the whole thing or not, but I'll start with page 1. On page 1 to the right, in the character of area, it describes us as a mix of undeveloped parcels. I find this to be a misleading statement because all the parcels surrounding this lot are homeowners, they are occupied, they are maintained, and they are not undeveloped. On page 2 of the Federal Management Association, on page 2 and 3, Federal Emergency Management Association maps and North Carolina Department of Environmental and Natural Resource notes that a large portion of the site was within a regulated flood zone with a high likelihood of regulated wetlands rated at a 7 out of 10. Noted on page 6 in reference to conservation areas, it states that intensive use of these areas for residential, commercial, or industrial purposes will not be permitted. On page 6 near the bottom, paragraph 13 notes that location factors shall include whether development is within an environmentally sensitive area. This whole area that they've noted down along through here is the Bell Swamp. It's a watershed area. It has tributaries that come in from a number of areas to include my backyard, from across 24, and several other areas where it leads in there, then it goes down into the feeds into the Queens Creek. Paragraph 16 notes the county will discourage residential development which exposes residents to harmful effects of incompatible development. Quote unquote incompatible development. Rezoning for commercial development is not in the best interests of our community, our neighborhood. Raising and filling this site as it's proposed to put a slab 270 feet by 170 feet is a lot of dirt. And it's going to affect the wetlands, it's going to affect the landfill, the surrounding area, and it's going to affect the change, effectively change the saturation of flow of water in and around the Bell Swamp area. P97 note that access of higher intensity development to lower intensity development shall generally not be permitted. In our review of the proposed construction A 270-foot by 170-foot concrete slab will have to be supported by a large amount of solid fill. Added to that, a 20 to 30-foot drive around the building to support vehicle traffic for load and unload of 150 units that are going to be put inside this building. It's been stated to a couple of the residents, because the builder has come to their homes and addressed them with these things. It's been stated that a 6-foot-high cinder block wall will be constructed on the south and east portion, requiring more solid fill and add to the standoff distance from the building, which will further encroach into the wetlands and the Bell Swamp area. It's also stated that a retention pond will be dug to the east of the building. That's the Bell Swamp. This portion in here that he showed is all woods, but it's not woods. It's a swamp. You can't even walk in there without sinking. It holds water constantly. We question the digging of a pond in wetlands and the Bell Swamp, bringing into question whether an extensive drainage study should be done in order to assess whether water flow in and around the homes will affect homes and livestock that are maintained on the properties to the south. Sandridge Road to the east, where the majority of the water flows, is very prone to flooding over the roadway and creates a hazard to motorists. More to the point, it severely restricts the access for Brooke and Christine Kelsey in their home on the southeastern portion of the property. This brings to question, if we fill the property in and bring in all this dirt and concrete, is there going to be an easement and sediment assessment done? It's been stated that a home will be moved to the property in order for the granddaughter to live on site. Right now, there is nothing on the property. Prior, there were several buildings that were bulldozed, to include a house, that were bulldozed and disappeared. The septic systems that are in place now do not work effectively, and this has been known for a number of years by the neighbors who have had it flood into their yards and have seen horrible effects of the inappropriate actions in remedying the problem. And based on information I've received, the property will not perk. When I was here for the last board meeting, the planning board meeting, one of the planning board members who voted in favor of rezoning this stated the building wasn't that big. In our perspective, this building would be like constructing a football field with sidelines, end zones, and a running track that'll be very well lit. In regards to the security facility, it should be noted that the parcel is closed in. It's surrounded by woods. They're going to put in fences and close it in even more. This is going to restrict the line of sight for security, not as much for me or the other neighbors. We have our own form of security. What it will be a concern for is the customers that could potentially put things in there, because the area is prone to thievery. In closing, I'd like to note that I have a petition signed by all the neighbors strongly opposing the rezoning of our neighborhood. Additionally, that I missed right here is that we currently have a total of 7 storage facilities within 4 miles of this property, one of which is less than a quarter of a mile away. So the statements about supporting growth of the community, yeah, I understand that, but this is just not in the best interests of our community. We are a community of farmers and open land, and we like the way it is, and we just want your support in keeping it the way it is. The rezoning, I have a letter here that I can present to the board if you would like. I also have letters here, a letter here from Brooke and Christine Kelsey on the south side addressing their concerns about the watershed area. And then from the Fred Gardner, who lives to the south, and his concerns, if you would like these.
Pass those to the clerk, please. Ms. Juan, could you bring those forward?
Those are copies. I have the originals in my possession.
And these are all residents.
Those are all residents, yes. There are actually 3 parcels that I did not get signatures from. One is to the direct east. This is Connie, Steve and Connie are brother and sister. Steve used to own the property. He's the one that's either sold or, I don't know if you've purchased the property or not. But he's the seller of the property. His sister and him, I did not bother to address for obvious reasons. The parcel directly right there, they had a death in the household, and it was not appropriate for me to knock on their door and ask for support. I do have a signature from residents that are on the other side of me. I live right here. And everybody else is in support. I also have supported members on the other side of Sandridge Road. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate what you do. And I wish I had some comments on the
Hang
7
around.
members. but
Hang
I'll try.
around. You can talk.
Thank
on
you,
that.
Mr. Wilhelm.
Any questions for me?
Ma'am,
We'll
sir,
call you
this
if
will
we
be
do.
later after the public hearing is over.
Yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm used to doing that.
The next speaker is Margaret Wilhelm of 179 Highway 172, Hubert.
My wife and Marge, they signed in, but they're not going to speak. Do you want to say anything, Marge?
Million, did I pass you my
Ms.
notes,
Marjorie
or-
Phelps.
I think I did.
The planning board heard what I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. The record will show that Ms. Margaret Wilhelm and Ms. Marjorie Phelps declined to speak at this time. With all those individuals that have signed up to speak having had a chance to speak, at this time I'll open the public hearing to members of the audience. If you would like to address the board concerning LCZ 2015-81, please come forward to the podium at this time. State your name and address. Once again, if there's any individual in the audience that has not had an opportunity to sign up but would like to speak at this time, please come forward. With all those individuals that have signed up, having had a chance to speak, and no further member of the audience coming forward at this time, the public hearing for LCZ 2015-81 is hereby closed. At this time, the commissioners may enter into discussion, and this item is available for commissioner action. Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm just giving Commissioner Bright a second to look over the documents. However, I will ask Mr. Warren to come back up for a few questions before I ask for a motion. Mr. Warren, this is a conditional zoning. What strenuous conditions were put on to negate the concerns of the residents that were living around?
Excuse me. Madam Chairman, the rezoning conditions that were submitted as part of this were in three different areas. The first, limiting the number and type of uses that could be conducted on the site itself, limiting to just residential, daycare, office, and self-storage. Additionally, the rezoning conditions addressing the buffering and screening, the site lighting, and access. And then the site plan itself is basically limits the actual layout of the site. The development of the site must be consistent with the site plan. If the petitioner decided to come back and do multiple buildings or multifamily or something that was inconsistent with the way the site plan is laid out, then they would have to come back before the Board of Commissioners for an amended petition. If they wanted to expand the number or type of uses or basically operate outside of the site plan or the conditions, they would be required to come back before the board for a modification of the rezoning. But it is limited to what you see in the site plan and just those handful of uses that are proposed.
Well, my problem, Mr. Warren, is you don't seem to have solved any of the concerns because the citizens still have several concerns. Are the concerns not valid?
Madam Chairman, I know there were a lot of concerns mentioned regarding environmental type issues. Those issues would be addressed by the developer through state permits and other types of permits on site. If they were to have any type of impact on the wetlands or the floodplain areas, they would have to have Corps of Engineer permits or other permits to do that.
Okay.
Otherwise, development would occur outside of those environmentally sensitive areas, which is what is proposed. And Mr. Pierce can probably speak further to some of those types of issues, but I know as far as any type of runoff or other environmental issues, those are addressed at the state or federal level and would be outside of our jurisdiction, but they are considered and they would be addressed as part of this development.
Okay. Do any board members have questions for Mr. Warren before I ask Mr. Pierce to come forward?
Yeah, I do have a question. When I look at the recommendation here, and Mr. Willem, thank you for coming forth, the concerns that were listed were lighting, security, and traffic. Have those areas been looked at, how we can address those? Because I think those are the major points that are listed here that were in the planning board meeting as far as public comments came forth. So, I mean, are those areas that can be handled, being taken care of by the developer? I mean, where are they in that, you know, what the citizens have stated that their concerns are?
Yes, ma'am. I guess starting with the traffic, the uses that are proposed as part of the rezoning would all be considered low-impact type uses, meaning they would have minimal trips per day. For instance, with the self-storage, it's a very low-volume type use. When we look at different traffic demands and when we're considering parking and traffic analysis, that is one of the lower type traffic uses, traffic generation uses that we have.
Okay.
So the residential uses and the self-storage would be a low traffic generation type use. They would be required to get an NCDOT driveway permit before they could have any type of development on site. So NCDOT would also analyze that to make sure that there would be no significant impacts on NC Highway 172. As far as the lighting, we do have conditions in the proposed rezoning that would address the lighting to make sure that it's directed and contained as best as possible within the site itself. And as far as the security, I'll let Mr. Pierce address that, but I know that issue was discussed some at the planning board, and there would be, that would really be up to the property owner himself, whether or not he had active security or whatever type of other security to maintain a secured site. I assumed it would be a fenced, controlled environment, but there again, I'll let Mr. Pierce speak further to that issue.
Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Warren? Thank you, Ben.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Pierce?
As far as concerning the environmental issues, we have done wetlands. There will be no development within the wetlands, and we won't have any wetlands impact. And we also we will construct a stormwater retention, and we will be in compliance with the state regulations, and we're not, and in fact, we should have less flow with our stormwater pond than there currently is flowing from the area, because we'll retain it from a minimum of 2 days to 5 days in a stormwater pond with a 10-year design storm. And as far as the traffic issues, I don't know of any other lower impact issue than what we're proposing. They're very, very low traffic, and if the board has any other questions, I'll try my best to answer them.
Any further questions for Mr.
I guess
Pierce?
just the other one was the security.
Yes, ma'am, the security, all his systems is very well secured. There will be a camera. He's got, in every facility he's got where he can sit at his office and monitor them, and he runs a very much controlled, secure system. And You'll have it monitored and cameras on at all times, and there will be a surveillance area. He runs a very secure operation.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce.
All right,
If there's
thank
no
you.
further, I'll entertain a motion from the board.
Can I readdress?
Certainly.
Please.
It's fine with the chair.
Because there's a couple of things I forgot. Can I?
Madam Chair, this is during Commissioner discussion. You have the ability to ask any questions or entertain anything you like.
Please come up and ask your questions.
One of the things I failed to mention that I have a note here is that I spoke to the Corps of Engineers and the Department of Environmental Management, and they, in talking to them, they told me that the delineation of the wetlands has to be done there. If the Corps of Engineers comes in and says, yeah, go ahead, you can dig your retention pond in this, that's fine, but that water runoff is going to go into, it's going to go into Jim Cook's yard right here. It's going to go into Marge Phelps's yard right here. Additionally, these folks back in here, they have livestock in there. And when it rains and we get these heavy downpours, that water comes up into their yards and they have to wait, and has an adverse effect on their livestock and their well-being. Now, this building site right here, when it goes up, it's going up 2-3 feet above the ground. So an assessment, a delineation, an assessment, and mitigation have to be done, and the public has the right to answer to that mitigation on whether or not he's going to be allowed to do these things. Now, I don't know the laws for Onslow County. I only know what the state rep from Wilmington told me as far as wetlands are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to go to staff recommendation.
Okay, recommendation to approve. Is there a second?
That's good.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a second. I would just like to state that I am a firm believer in personal property rights, and I believe that each citizen should have the right to develop or sell or their property as they would like. However, I don't think that negates the responsibility to your impacting your neighbors. And I know that the courts are full of suits where neighbors feel like they have been adversely impacted. I have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Is that one nay?
Yeah.
Okay, 4-1, it passes. Thank you very much.
Got to be kidding. All them folks that said this was a joke, they were right.
Excuse me, sir, you're out of order. Continue, Mr. Manager.
Yes, Madam Chair. Next item of business is rezoning case LREC 2016-3. This time I'll ask Mr. Ben Warren to give a brief staff introduction. Mr. Warren?
All right, thank you, Mr. Hudson. The second request that we have for your consideration this evening is a request to rezone property from conservation to office institutional. Taking a look at the overview and the background of the property owners are Onslow County and Onslow County Board of Education. Parcel identification numbers 53-23.1 and 53-23.2 for a rezoning area of approximately 195.22 acres. There is a floodplain area and wetlands on the southernmost portion of each parcel, and excuse me, utilities are provided by Onwassa, including a 4-inch and an 8-inch water line that run along Franktown Road, and also a 10-inch water line that's available from Calhorn Road. Sewer is currently not available at this time, and fire service is provided by Northwest Onslow Volunteer Fire Department with an ISO rating of 5. The two streets providing access to the properties, Franktown Road, which has an average annual daily traffic count of 610 vehicles per day, and Calhoun Road, which has an average daily traffic count of 1,300 vehicles trips per day. And both of those have a capacity in the vicinity of 10,000 vehicle trips per day. Schools providing service to the properties, Richlands Elementary, Trexler Middle, and Richlands High, and all three are over capacity. If you take a look at the combined properties, as you can see, the property is accessed to the north by Franktown Road and to the east by Calhoun Road. Zoom in a little bit closer and look at our existing zoning. The property is primarily surrounded by RA, rural agricultural zoning, and R20 zoning. As we look at the aerials, the larger parcel owned by Onslow County consists of the Richlands Steed Park, and the smaller tract, Onslow County Board of Education tract, is currently vacant. This is the view of providing access to the property off of Franktown Road. And this is the view of the parcel from Calhoun Road. Look at the district comparison. The conservation district is primarily used to conserve natural areas throughout the county, has no minimum lot size and no maximum density. The office institutional is primarily designed to provide for a mixture of employment and institutional type uses. There again, no minimum lot size and no maximum density. The land use plan for this area, excuse me, divides the property in two with rural residential and conservation zoning. And as that relates to the proposed office institutional, at the time the comprehensive plan was created, the office institutional zoning district was not in existence, so it was not directly considered. However, when you look at the underlying principles of the office institutional zoning district, it is consistent with the policies and guiding principles for both the rural residential and the conservation designations. As we look at the reasonableness and public interest, the proposed rezoning is considered reasonable in light of the existing uses in close proximity to the rezoning site. And both the staff and the planning board recommend approval of the rezoning request. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hudson for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. At this time, we'll open rezoning case LREZ 2016-3 public hearing. There are no individuals that have signed up for the public hearing. Therefore, I'll open a call to the audience. If any member of the audience wishes to speak regarding the rezoning case LREZ 2016-3, now would be the time to come forward. Once again, a second call. If any member of the audience who did not have an opportunity to sign up would like to come forward now and speak, you may do so. With no members of the public that have signed up to speak and no members of the public coming forward, the public hearing is hereby closed. This item is now available for Commissioner consideration. Madam Chair.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Item C, rezoning case LREZ 2016-7. This time I'll ask Mr. Ben Warren to give a brief staff introduction. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. I promise this is the last one. All right, this rezoning request is a request to rezone property from currently RA Rural Agricultural to HB Highway Business. The background for this is the property owners consist of Mr. James H. Rouse and Mr. James A. Rouse. Parcel identification numbers 1301-117 and 1301-118 for a total rezoning area of approximately 0.42 acres. And there is no floodplain or anticipated wetlands on either property. Onwassa has a 10-inch and a 12-inch water line available from Hubert Boulevard, and sewer is currently not available to the site. Fire service provided by Hubert Volunteer Fire Department, again with an ISO rating of 6. And Hubert Boulevard providing access to the property has an average annual daily traffic count of 3,300 vehicle trips per day. Schools providing access to or service to the property include Queens Creek Elementary, Swansboro Middle, and Swansboro High School, and all three are considered under capacity. We took a look at the property, a little bit hard to see here, but located just on the north side of Hubert Boulevard, just west of its intersection with NC Highway 172. Zooming a little bit closer, looking at the surrounding zoning, you can see everything north of Hubert Boulevard is primarily zoned RA. Everything south of Hubert Boulevard in the vicinity of this site is zoned highway business. And the crosshatched area that you see is the Flight Path Overlay District. And then taking a look at the aerial photo, the property is surrounded on the western and northern sides by an existing mobile home park with some existing single-family residential on the north side. And on the south side, we have primarily existing commercial development. And this is a view of the rezoning site from Hubert Boulevard. And the property is split down the middle, and there's two storefronts. One is an existing barber shop. The other is a proposed tobacco sales store. As we compare the two districts, the rural agricultural district is primarily established to maintain a rural development pattern. There's a total of approximately 153 uses that are allowed within the RA district. Many of those are non-residential in nature. The district has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet with no maximum density, as compared to the highway business district, which is primarily established to accommodate service and retail type businesses and development with no minimum lot size and no maximum density. The primary difference in these two situations, even though RA has a lot of non-residential uses, the highway business would allow a little bit more intense development than the existing RA. And I think that one of the uses that is intended for the site would be one that's not currently allowed in RA, but would be allowed in highway business. As we look at the future land use map, this area falls within an area-wide commercial activity center, which recommends more of the high-intensity type commercial activity. So the proposed rezoning would be considered consistent with the comprehensive plan's future land use map and its guiding principles. And it's also considered reasonable in light of the existing zoning directly adjacent to the property, as well as existing uses within the area. And both staff and the planning board have recommended approval of the proposed rezoning. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hudson for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Warney. This time I'll open the public hearing for rezoning case LRAZ 2016-7. There are no individuals that have signed up for the public hearing, so I'll make a call to the audience. If any person would like to speak regarding rezoning case LRAZ 2016-7, now would be the time to come to the podium. Once again, a call to the audience for anyone to come to the podium at this time to speak regarding this rezoning case. With no one signed up and no one coming forward from the audience, the public hearing is hereby closed. This case is available for commissioner consideration and possible action. Madam Chair.
What's the board's pleasure?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Continue, Mr. Hudson.
Item 6, general items. A, Resolution 16-004. At this time, I'll read the resolution into the record. After reading the resolution into the record, this item is available for county commissioner consideration. Resolution 16-004, resolution to enhance representation for the citizens of Onslow County on the Onslow County Board of Commissioners. Whereas the Onslow County Board of Commissioners is currently composed of 5 members elected at large every 4 years under concurrent terms, and whereas between 2005 and 2015, Onslow County's population grew by 15.97%, and whereas Onslow County's 2016 total population was projected at 195,835 by the North Carolina Office of State Planning, and whereas the North Carolina Department of Commerce projects Onslow's 2019 population at 222,057 persons with an annual projected growth rate of 2.5%, and whereas Onslow's diverse population is spread over a geographical area spanning 767 square miles with multiple population centers, and whereas Onslow County's 2016 budget exceeded $204 million, and whereas 88 of the 100 counties in North Carolina are served by boards organized under staggered terms, and whereas 38 of the 100 counties in North Carolina are served by boards with more than 5 commissioners, and whereas Onslow County's commissioners deal with a wide variety of complex issues and must interact daily with United States military officials, and whereas the Onslow County Republican Party, meeting in convention in March 2016, overwhelmingly passed a resolution seeking to increase the size of the Onslow County Board of Commissioners from 5 to 7 at-large seats with staggered terms, and whereas expanding the board from 5 to 7 seats would enhance representation for the growing population of the county, and whereas best business practices dictate that moving from concurrent terms to staggered terms would provide a continuity of corporate knowledge that is necessary in an enterprise with over 1,250 employees and a $204 million budget. And whereas following the November 2016 general election, the next countywide election shall be in 2018. And whereas the Onslow County Board of Commissioners desire to enhance representation in a timely manner at no additional election expense to the taxpayers of Onslow County. Therefore, be it resolved that the County of Onslow requests that the General Assembly of the State of North Carolina enact legislation that immediately addresses the needs of the County of Onslow in the following manner. 1. Effective December 5, 2016, the Onslow County Board of Commissioners shall be comprised of 7 members who shall be those 7 candidates that receive the highest number of votes cast during the November 2016 general election, as selected from the 7 candidates who received the highest number of votes during the March 2016 Republican primary, and those 2 Democrat candidates who advanced past the March 2016 primary election. 2. The commissioner shall be elected at large within the county. 3. The commission shall move from concurrent terms to staggered terms. The 4 candidates who receive the highest number of votes in the November 2016 general election shall be elected to serve 4-year terms. The 3 candidates who receive the next highest number of votes in the November 2016 general election shall serve 1 2-year term and shall stand for election again in the 2018 election cycle. During the 2018 election cycle and thereafter, all commissioners shall be elected to serve 4-year terms. Be it further resolved that the intent of the County of Onslow is to research and propose the establishment of a combination of at-large and electoral or residency district seats on the Board of Commissioners for future elections. Adopted this 4th day of April 2016. At this time, the item is available for commissioner modification, rejection, or approval. Madam Chair.
Thank you. I would like to make a statement before I open this up for board discussion. I want it perfectly understood that I alone submitted the request to staff to write this proposed resolution. I alone encourage staff to leave out the whining over how hard the job is or how much dedication it takes, because when you run for this office, you know what it takes. If you can't do the job, then you shouldn't run. I also put the requirements in that would facilitate the fastest, the quickest, the most expedient way to move this resolution forward. I have sat here for 8 years and worked, and I believe one of the speakers even indicated how in 2009 I tried to get this board or the previous board to make a motion to move forward with this. There's a lot of talk that goes on, but nobody seems to carry through. So yes, I have put a preposterous resolution forward, but I got your attention. And I hope that when I am gone, that someone will see that these things get taken care of. At this time, I will open the resolution up to the board, but I would make a motion that it be withdrawn and that the next Board of County Commissioners address this well overdue problem that our citizens perceive in the lack of 7 commissioners.
I would second that motion.
I have a motion and a second to withdraw the resolution. Any further discussion?
Well, Madam Chair, I'd like to have some discussion in this.
Very well.
And that is, I want to state for the record, my name is Millionaire Williams. I reside at 610 Little John Avenue, which is in the illustrious city of Jacksonville. And I don't understand why people continually come forward and say there's no representation from Jacksonville. I don't think I'm a silent partner as I sit here. So that I really need to make clear, because that's why my head went down, because I don't understand. My address has been 610 Little John for 12 long years. That's one point. Second point, the resolution that was sent from the Republican Party, it stated that there were 12 boards that were required by statute. I did my research. There are only about 3 or 4 boards that are required by the law. What you see that's on this paper with the resolution is because we have heart of servants up here. So when people come, the public comes, the constituents come to you and state to you, Madam Commissioner, would you mind serving on my board? Because we have a heart of a servant, we say yes. And I don't think, I'll go so far as to say, I know I've never complained about serving on too many boards because I stated yes. So, for the record, there are certain things that need to be factual data as opposed to erroneous facts. I'm about truth, I'm about integrity, and I'm about documentation and information that is correct and factual data. So when you look at this resolution from the GOP party, this information is not correct. And one that was missing was the Trillium Board. So, I mean, we've got to look at data that is proper and correct and not just throwing things out there to make something look better for your personal agenda. That's a problem. And I just have to get this off my chest tonight to the county, because you've got to come with accurate data if you're going to come forth. So I think I've stated my case, Madam Chair.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I truly support your motion, and I support the second. And back in 2012, when I ran, my platform was to create a 7-member board, and that didn't happen in 2012 when I ran before. And I still support a 7-person board, staggered terms, and we need to explore other avenues. I think we need to do that also. The method for altering the board structure, as we all know, is 2 methods. We can let our local delegation handle it, or we can, as a board, do a resolution, and then we do a public hearing, and then we send it to a referendum for a vote. And I think the endorsement from our local, if the method that was sent forward to us tonight was to send it before our local delegation. And like 2 weeks ago, we had an item on our agenda about the forestry and Huffman Forest becoming maybe a county range. And at that time, we got all of our local delegation to do a letter of endorsement for us to move forward with that. And all of them did send us a letter of endorsement, except for Chris Millis that was in Hampstead, I think, and we had other letters also. So I think before we were to move forward on an item like this, that we would actually, because it's going to legislative action, I would think we would get a letter of endorsement, or either have a workshop and work with our local delegation to get what they think that they can do for us in Raleigh. One of the local House representatives said that he would do whatever this board wanted to do to get it pushed through, and he would work his best to do that, and I commend him for that. But I also had reports from other members of our local delegation that said they would like to see a referendum and a vote from the people, and that's exactly what we heard tonight, Madam Chair, from the citizens that spoke. They wanted to hear from the local voters and let the voters decide on it, and I appreciate that. And I had a conversation with some of the candidates that were nominated in the March primary, and they
they were really affected by this resolution as it was standing, but these folks didn't have and even their Democrat candidates, Mr. Ernie Wright, which was a former commissioner, and also Mr. Don Klinger, they didn't really have a vote in this as it stood tonight. So I think this move and this motion and this second really gives a better perception of this board, and I think the perception is a lot different than it was with some of the folks that come up here and spoke. And I appreciate the folks that did come in tonight. So that's about all I have to say about that.
Well, I appreciate your comments, Mr. Bright. I just wish that over the past years that you served, you had initiated moving forward with it. Vice Chair, do you have something you'd like to say?
Just a few things. You know, in the forum, I did say that I'd only support 5 commissioners, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm not going to go into all of them tonight because I know Mr. Burgess is here, and him and I have had some discussions in the past. There's a lot more to it than just let's do this and let's do that. I think that what needs to be done is there needs to be a workshop with the Republican Party and with the commissioners and as a group to work together to see what the resolution should be. But I'm like Ernie Wright, I think he said it right. It should be the 5 commissioners that get elected in November that make those decisions and not the decisions of this board. And that's what I feel. I know I'm real quiet a lot of times about things, but I can tell you this, I will support 7 if the people of Onslow County support it. So if they say yes in a forum, and when they take it to a referendum, then I would support whatever the public says. Thank you.
Mr. Jarman, would you like to state? Mr. Jarman has nothing to say. I would like to make one further comment. Much has been said about me, and much has been said about pulling up my big boy pants. Well, I have them pulled up because they cover my tattoo. Can I have a motion? I mean, what's the board's pleasure? I have a motion.
In a second?
What's the board's pleasure?
Aye.
Aye. All in favor?
Nay.
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 Mr. Jarman? 4 to 1. The future Board of Commissioners, I implore you, get this done. Move forward, Mr. Manager.
We need a break.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Pardon me?
Somebody want to see the other half of your tattoo. We need a break.
Well, we'll take a break and I'll show it to you. Let's take a 5-minute break.
To the sound room, that's a 1 minute, please. Madam Chair, we're moving into item B under general items, consolidated agreement between the State of North Carolina and Onslow County Health Department. Presenting this is Ms. Angela Lee, our Health Director, who will also answer any questions of the board. Director Lee?
Funding for specific health department programs. The attached annual consolidated agreement for fiscal year 16-17 outlines the responsibilities of the local health department as well as the state. This is an annual agreement which is renewed each year between the state of North Carolina and the health department. I respectfully request approval to accept the consolidated agreement between the state of North Carolina and the health department and authorize the chairman to sign the agreement on behalf of the board. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item C is reimbursement resolution and project budget ordinance. As this begins, I would make a note to the board. All of your backup information was correct and accurate in your agenda package. However, prior to submitting this item to the clerk, we made a typographical error, and in the motion, it should state approval of the reimbursement resolution and project budget ordinance. So 3 words or 4 words should be added. At this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Megan Doyle, Assistant County Manager, to present the item.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Board of Commissioners. In order for us to ensure that we are in compliance with North Carolina Administrative Code with our detention center, we need to make sure that we have temperatures within certain limits. Upon the construction of the detention center, our HVAC units were located in a position that was not necessarily desirable to make sure that our heating and cooling could be within those limits. As a result, we're bringing forward to you an agenda item to have a construction budget ordinance as well as a reimbursement resolution to allow us to make improvements to the HVAC systems to ensure that we can make sure that we provide heating and cooling in those units for compliance with administrative code.
Okay. Do we have an estimate on this that we feel is a good estimate, or is this a solid estimate, or are we just guesstimating on the amount of the cost?
Yes, ma'am, we do have, we got 2 estimates, both coming in around the same amount, which is what is represented in the documents that you have.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Dr. Doyle, where I'm going with this is the units that are up there, because were they too small? Or do I have to be careful how I word this? As the architect make a mistake? Because we've had a lot of architect mistakes in that facility.
I can't really assess a situation to say who's to blame or what the situation was. The units were originally sized correctly for the building, to my understanding and to my research over the last several months. I think it's the location of the units on the roof and the fact that the temperatures on the roof reach higher temperatures than regular air temperature. Just like when you're in a car and you've got something being heated on a dashboard, it's very similar. The temperatures on that dashboard are a lot higher than they are in the ambient air. As a result, those HVAC units being located on the roof make it much more difficult to cool specifically the air that has to go into the detention center cells.
Thank you.
Any further? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Madam Chair, for clarity, that motion included both the project budget ordinance and the reimbursement resolution. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Item 7, appointments. Onslow County Board of Adjustment, The Onslow County Board of Adjustment is governed by the terms of the Onslow County Zoning Ordinance and North Carolina Statute 153A-345. All members of the board shall thoroughly familiarize themselves with these laws and ordinances. Mr. Homer Hobgood, Jacksonville Category's term expired on January 31, 2016. Mr. Hobgood does not wish to be considered for reappointment. Mr. John T. Smith, who currently serves as the at-large candidate, or alternate rather, has expressed an interest in appointment and has submitted a citizen participation application. No other individuals have expressed an interest in serving at this time. The vacancy was advertised. The applications on file has been certified by the clerk's office. The specific action requested is consider the appointment of Mr. John T. Smith, Jacksonville Category, for a 3-year term expiring on January 31, 2019.
What's the board's pleasure?
I would make that motion, but I'd also like to, Jeff, is there a way that we could send an ISER from the chair or from the board to Mr. Homer Hobgood? He has done an outstanding job on this board. He's been there for a long time. He's a good friend of this whole board. I would like to see some sort of a thank you letter from the chair and the commissioners, if that's possible. And I'll make a motion.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioners, and we'll take care of that. Thank you as well. Holly Ridge Planning Board, Board of Adjustment, item B. In 2015, the Holly Ridge Town Council took action creating a Holly Ridge Planning Board, Board of Adjustment. The combined boards consist of 7 members, 2 members of which are citizens of Onslow County who reside outside the corporate limits of the town, but within the ETJ. Ms. Anna Gaskins, ETJ representative's initial 1-year term will expire on April 28, 2016. Ms. Gaskins has expressed an interest in continuing her service and provided citizen participation application. The specific action requested is consider the appointment of Ms. Anna Gaskins to the Holly Ridge Planning Board/Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term expiring on April 28, 2019.
Could I have a motion for Ms. Anna
So moved.
Gaskins? A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That concludes the appointments. And the next item is what was pulled off the consent agenda, which was item 2A, which is a request for an additional $30,000 for legal out of the fund balance because they've overspent their budget for last year. I appreciate that Ms. Moxley is not here to answer questions, and I won't put Caitlin on the spot. So at this time, I would like to make a motion that we send this item back to legal and ask Ms. Moxley to look deeper into her budget so we are not making budget amendments this late in the budget year for any department head. Can I have a
I
second?
will second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Anyone would like to discuss anything further on that? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Public comment. Do we have another public comment? I'm sorry if I skipped that, Jeff.
No, you didn't.
This is the second public comment period. During the second public comment period, there is a 5-minute time limit. In accordance with the board's rules of procedure, commissioners shall reserve their responses, if any, for the commissioner comment period at the end of the agenda. Citizens shall have the opportunity to talk about any issue upon which the Board of Commissioners have control. The first individual that signed up to speak this evening is Richard Butler of 213 Center Street. Mr. Butler, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 5 minutes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm about the only one that's not rushing out to see the ball game. I've lived in this county a long time, and I have not made many meetings, but I hope that some of y'all have seen my face in the last few meetings that we've had. I know that you got the blunt this evening from 5 commissioners to 7 commissioners, and I'm one of those that we're going to speak against that. I think it ought to be 5. I did not feel like that we should move from point A to point B, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. That's already been acknowledged, and I appreciate it. But there are some things that happen here communication-wise between y'all and the public. We look to y'all to help lead us down the right road. And so when we get here and say our piece, you know, we're just one person speaking at that time, but we are part of the people. Now, that this issue could have been done and brought to us in a way that y'all are going to take it down the road. And I appreciate that. Because I've heard all of you, if my memory serves me right, and I'm a pretty old feller, but a few meetings back, everybody agreed to 5. And I think Mr. Jack Bright had said to go to 7. Now, I might be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I apologize to this board. But I still think it ought to be 5. We ought not be jumping horses in the middle of the stream, and that's the last thing I'm going to say on that. I want people to know who I am and where I'm at and what I do and what I don't do. But I like for this board to know that I am taking a more interest in what's going on. And when people talk and you hear what I hear, y'all hear a lot more conversation from people that have money and contacts than I do. But my voice is just as important to me as theirs is. They need to be heard, and me, and the ones that are left need to be heard. These with power and money don't need to get their way every time, or 90% of the time. I promise you, if I put a plot of land up on this screen here and said I would like to build a little cabin out there, y'all just toss me right out the door. That's the way I feel, and that's the way I see it. But there's some people with money in this county, they can get anything done they want. And just because they've got money doesn't mean they've got the right answer. And I don't think that parcel out towards 172 and Sand Ridge Road was voted right tonight. Because I've been there, knowing that it's not going to get, I've seen it, and it happened here again tonight. Money got its way. If it's wetlands, it's wetlands. We can't build on that. And that's why we're in the problem that we're in down in North Topsail Beach. And I know that there's people that love North Topsail Beach. I do. I remember when I could go down that inlet road and there weren't 6 houses on the whole place. But when we have people from higher institutions, state of North Carolina, state of North Carolina State, when these professors and engineers up there tell us that we're throwing money away, we've got to cut the purse string somewhere. I'm not mad with those people at North Topsail Beach. Miss Eichner, I delivered to your house I don't know how many times. You don't even know who I am right now because I don't have shorts and a brown hat on that says UPS. I've been around to all of y'all except for Miss Williams there. I have not delivered to her that I know of, but everybody else up there I have. So I know what goes on in this county. I've seen it and I've lived with it. But I pray for y'all because the good book says, and that's the Bible, says to pray for you that have authority over me. You have authority over this county, and you need to make it right every time. You're going to miss, but stand together and make it right. And the county will be willing to live with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next individual that signed up to speak is Daniel Whitten of 205 Patrick Allen Lane. If I did not pronounce that last name correctly, please.
That's actually quite perfect, thank you, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairwoman, how are you? Thank you. I'll be fast, I have homework due tonight, a paper. My passion is mental health. I worked in the ER with those who are suicidal, homicidal, psychotic, veterans with PTSD and TBI challenges, and people who do not have the money really to afford medications, or they live in Sneads Ferry and they can't get to Jacksonville to see their doctor. I left Onslow and worked at Bryn Mawr Hospital, and there you have kids who are just dropped off by their parents because they're done with them, and they become a guest of the state. And these kids are suicidal or just behavioral. And what I see resonating through most of the kids is a lack of someone to look up to as a leader, as a parent, as a grandparent, as a godparent, whatever. And the only person that they can look to model that, what it is to be, a kid, teenager, adult, whatever, is, the occasional therapist that comes in once a week at Bryn Mawr. And that's just not adequate. So, that's why it's a passion to me to get into mental health, is to be a role model. I'm not perfect, but I've gone through a lot of crap in my childhood and as a young adult, and I learned a whole lot. And I want to give that back to whoever I can help out with that. And there's a lot of hate tonight. It was very colorful, and I actually kind of, it's kind of cool to watch a democracy at work. And I like seeing this wall pull down to see us have to fill up the entire room with people coming to get involved. There are better ways. I feel as a young adult, I just turned 30, well, younger, I guess, to be a leader and to get a message across. And a lot of times that's not through theatrics, but action. And sometimes that action can just be humble. Being humble, sitting down and saying, look, here's what I want to do. And, finding ways to work together with whoever it takes to get stuff done. So from a personal level as a taxpayer, and this is my hometown, thank you for withdrawing that resolution. There is a better way to solve that problem. Now, however, I wear a couple of more hats here in the community. It's not very often that Democrats and Republicans get an opportunity to work together. It's fun to crazy conservatives or you're crazy liberals, but there is a problem that affects the entire county, and that's the level, well, really the quality of how the voice of our community is represented at this room right here. And so, I want to thank the GOP for starting the conversation about improving the voice of the people in this room right here. On behalf of the Onslow County Democratic Party and the Young Democrats of Onslow County, we are grateful for that, and we look forward to continuing the conversation at our convention coming up. And we are also grateful for the withdrawal and the sense of reason. And I look forward personally and as a party and as a Young Democrat to work with whoever we can or I can to sit down, have some pizza and a Mountain Dew, talk about the root causes of things like crime, poverty, and violence, suicide, the whole list, and how we can work together to solve those problems. And if we can do that, I'll be a happy camper. Again, thank you from personal and from the party and the Young Democrats. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Al Burgess, P.O. Box 615, Jacksonville. Mr. Burgess, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 5 minutes.
Act like I'm Kevin O'Connor. Now, I want to come back up here again because 3 minutes I was rushing. I mean, it's like you're rushing trying to get in some substance. But I heard the commissioners, state that, get some workshops going on, some research, get the citizens educated in respects to what districts are. But I have to say this, between 2009 and 2012, we done that. I stood at the other building, voicing the concerns that were brought to me. I've sent emails, I made phone calls, I bothered quite a few people on the board, including the county manager over there, Jeff. But we had, in 2012, we finally got some people that would help us out. We got Anita Earl, she's a voter.
Excuse me, Mr. Burgess, Ms. Wanda, is the clock not working?
Mine's running, but I think in the back room it's not running. Mine's running right now.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Burgess.
That's fine.
I didn't want you to talk all night.
Okay. I got some wind, but I won't. I got everything written down. I won't do you like that. But we got Miss Anita Earls from the Southern Coalition for Social Justice. She actually did a seminar on drawing districts up in Durham. She invited a delegation of folks from Onslow County because she heard our issues. I know the board, they were concerned about having money. So they did stuff like that pro bono for 501c3 organizations. And at the time, we were one of 40 counties in North Carolina that was protected by Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Or was it 4? One of them. But anyway, we went up there, we came back. They actually assigned somebody to our area to conduct workshops and forums to get people educated on it. I spoke with Ms. Barbara, said, look, they're gonna help out. She said, I'll run it by the board and I get your answer. Nothing happened. So when I came here last year, I felt like it was an opportune time to, try to present it again. So if I see a resolution that is, that's conducive to the needs of the citizens and addresses what we've been trying to get accomplished for like the past 7 years, I'm gonna jump on it. I don't care who don't like it, I'm gonna jump on it. So I mean, that's why I came here tonight. So I looked at the resolution, I was like, nah. So I mean, I know like, there's a few people that may feel like they were disenfranchised or like they're getting a bum deal, but I'm like this, I mean, if they voted for you once, they'll vote for you again. I mean, that's the way I see it. But I appreciate everything you're doing. I mean, I just hope that whoever's elected to the board, I mean, all this junk that was talked up in here, tonight about what they want, I hope that we have some people that don't just talk about it, but they be about it too as well. And it is what it is. But I appreciate the board for trying to get something through there. And I'm gonna keep wearing y'all to death in respects to it because it's just telling me it's not a dead issue. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Manager?
Yes, Madam Chair. The next name was April Seifert. However, that name was marked through. I have no idea if Ms. Seifert marked through her own name or not. I want to make sure that Ms. Seifert does not want to come forward at this time. And she is not, so therefore we'll move to the next name, Mr. Gene Innett of P.O. Box 532, Sneads Ferry. Mr. Innett, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 5 minutes. He is left. The next individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Fred Franklin of 1259 McAllister Road, Jacksonville. Mr. Franklin, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 5 minutes. Okay, the next person that signed up is Ms. Sherry Eason of 101 Hamilton Lane, Hubert. Ms. Eason, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 5 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Sherry Eason of 101 Hamilton Lane in Hubert. I am also a proud Democrat, and I, like Dan before who has spoken, I think that possibly moving to 7 commissioners might be a good idea, but the only way that I think that we should do that is if we go to a hybrid system and we do have districts. And I do also believe that if we have districts, which can be drawn, geographically, because this is, as was pointed out in the resolution that was up tonight, this is a very, very large county, very spread out county. And I think that, and I have lived in many different places, and every place that I've lived, other than one that only had 5,000 people, all of them had a hybrid system. And I think the hybrid system of having districts, Mecklenburg County is a good example of that, which is where I came from before I came here. That gives you the representation, of Swansboro area and Sneads Ferry and North Topsail. They're way out there, from rich lands. They're very far apart. And I think that we should have representatives from the Jacksonville municipality and from some of the other communities and have a geographic system. And if you want to stagger the terms, that would be okay. But I think that not only would that be a good idea so that as Ernie Wright said, people could actually get in touch with their commissioner. The commissioner is someone who lives in their community and they feel more comfortable going and talking to them about their concerns. But I also think that you would probably have a much better chance of I think we do need to have workshops and educate people, but I think you'd have a much better chance of moving to a 7-commissioner board if you actually did make it a hybrid system where you had districts. We don't need 7 that's more of the same. We need 7 because 5 of them are representing different communities and 2 of them can be at large. And I believe that, I appreciate what Jack Bright said about moving forward, and I think Paul Buchanan said something about moving forward and talking about the Republican Party needed to meet with the Board of Commissioners. Well, I'm sorry, but we all need to be involved. That needs to include the Democratic Party too. And all of the constituents, you saw so many people come out tonight because they do have opinions on this matter. We saw several people who are advocating for districts, and I do believe that is the best way for our county to have the proper representation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that's the last individual that signed up for the second public comment period.
Okay. Mr. Manager, do you have some comments for the remaining people tonight?
Thank you, Madam Chair, I do. As we were going through the agenda, I just made a couple of notes. Public policy, E911, social services, transportation, land use, public health, construction, repair of mandated facilities, and appointments to boards and commissions. That is a wide variety of decisions that have to be made by this Board of County Commissioners. And those are only the topics that you covered this evening. From any meeting to meeting, a county government covers such a wide variety of needs of the public. Regardless of whether a person falls on one side of an issue or another, there's an extraordinarily large amount of complex issues that the commissioners face. One great way to learn more about county government is, of course, to really go through the county's budget. And this coming Monday is the board's workshop. This is the first opportunity that the board will have to hear an unvarnished, raw, if you will, set of requests from departments, outside agencies, nonprofits, basically everyone that would seek financial support from Onslow County government during the fiscal year that starts July 1, 2016 and ends June 30, 2017. By going through the budget in this way, everyone really can have a great look at both the complexity of the issues and sometimes the overwhelming amount of requests that you face. Because I assure you, even though I have not seen the tabulated amounts yet from the finance officer, the requests for expenditures always far, far exceed the available revenues that you have at your disposal. And even the revenues that you have are mandated in many instances for earmarked specific things. Recently, I read in the Jacksonville Daily News a letter to the editor about the fact that we needed a YMCA versus a gun range, and I want to make one example of some of those earmarked revenues. I do not dispute the fact that we need a YMCA. I do not dispute the fact that we need a public pool or something of that nature. However, any monies that would be set aside for Onslow County for a gun range come from taxes on the sale of firearms and ammunition. And that's a grant program administered by North Carolina Wildlife, and that grant could only be used for a firing range. It could not be used to build an orphanage, a children's hospital, anything else at all. So at times when these grant opportunities do come, they have a lot of restrictions on them, and so we simply go with the restrictions that we have in place. And there are many needs of the community that are still left unmet. And so as staff, we research and we provide the commissioners with any data or information or products that you desire of us, and we still stand ready to do that. So I thank you for the board for the variety of issues that you addressed, and if any members of the board have research requests, obviously we always provide that and make sure that every member of the board receives a copy of all research requested by one member of the board. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. This is the commissioner comment section. I'll start with Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to thank all of the public who came forward, posed their opinions, their thoughts, their comments. So I thank you for coming forward. I'd like to also thank our Onslow County Emergency Services this evening for their hard work and dedication in what they do in saving lives in this community, because it could be any one of us in this room at any given point in time that they have to save our lives. So I really thank you for the work that you put into this community in keeping us all alive. I look forward to the budget workshop. I know I'll be eating my Cheerios that morning because I'll have plenty of coffee, because I know it will be a long, engaging day for us. And those of you that want to come out, it's open to the public. We're transparent, open to the public. Please come participate as attendees to hear what's being stated, so you'll get that firsthand knowledge and information. And again, I reiterate, to the public, I reside along with my husband, Stephen Joseph Williams, at 610 Little John Avenue in the illustrious city of Jacksonville, North Carolina. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Mr. Jarman?
You know, I'd like to say, reply to what the lady said up there at the podium a while ago. If you have 5 or you have 7, I think you should have a district, and I should I think the commissioner should be nonpartisan, just like the Board of Education. I think the county commissioner is supposed to serve everybody in the county. I don't think they're supposed to have this GOP and the D, dividing. I think if we just should have an election that the Democrats, Republicans can all vote for who they please to serve them, and I think we'd have a better county. I think our school boards are working good doing that, and I would love to see it go into districts and nonpartisan. That's what I'd love to see.
Thank you, Mr. Jarman. Mr. Bright?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be short. Good night. It's my bedtime, not ball time.
Is that it?
That's what he said. He said that was it. I don't
Mark
think she
this
believed you,
day
Jack.
in history. Vice Chair.
I just, you got me tickled now with Jack's mess. To Miss Eason, Ernie and I go way back. We do discuss a lot of things, and I didn't mean to forget the Democrats or anything, but Ernie and I do have a lot of conversations over the last several years since I've been a commissioner, and he's a very valuable person to this community. So thank you. Good night.
First, I'd like to invite everyone down to Sneads Ferry next Saturday, the blessing of the fleet. It was supposed to have been last Saturday, but because of the rain. If you've never been to a blessing of a fleet, it's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. It's at Fulcher's Landing, the boat ramp there at 11 a.m. It's just a beautiful time down by the water. So if you would like to come and watch the blessing of the fleet, it is an annual event that goes on in Sneads Ferry. I'd like to also state that tonight on the rezoning, and I made the statement that I believe in personal property rights, and I do believe that every person has the right to do with their property and not have to be subject to what the neighbors want, as long as it is within the respectability of their rights. And while I know the people were disappointed that the vote did not go their way, my vote was not cast because of someone having money or not having money. It's because personal property right, and if someone violates their neighbor's rights, then there's courts of law for that. So that, more so than who had the money, was where I was on that issue. The only other comment I'd like to make is quite a bit has been said over the past weekend and over the day on social media and on the radio. And unfortunately, people can say anything they wish to say with no fact or no truth to it. And that's one thing I will not miss when I'm no longer a commissioner. So can I have a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.